Go ahead.
All right. Hi there. My name is Nathan Taylor, and this is a presentation on 10 essential tips for marketing to international third culture kid families. And I'm the placement director at Saudi Aramco Expatriate Schools located in Saudi Arabia. First thing I want to do is talk about global nomads and the definition of global nomads or third culture kids. So you know you're a global nomad when you can't answer the question, where are you from? You flew before you could walk. The U.S. is a foreign country, or the country of the passport is a foreign country. You go home for a vacation. You sort your friends by continents. You speak with authority on the quality of airline travel. You watch National Geographic specials and recognize people and places. Your life story uses the phrase, "then we went to," 3 times or more. And you tell people where you're from and their eyes get big. You believe football is played with a round spotted ball. The question, where are you from, has more than one reasonable answer. National Geographic makes you homesick. You realize what a small world it is after all. So here's some just some definitions of third culture kids. This is one definition. Basically, it's somebody who spent a sufficient period of time in a culture other than their own nationality, but it's not fully integrated into that culture. So here are some key definitions then. You have the home culture, which is your passports. Let me just go back, which is your passport culture, passport nationality. And then the host country is where you're currently living outside of your home culture. Okay, so you have the home culture, which is your net passport country, and you have the host country culture. In the case of our students, a lot of them are U.S. Citizens or Canadian citizens, though we have international students from all over the world, but their host country is Saudi Arabia. So what is a third culture kid? It can be abbreviated TCK, 3CK, or global nomad. It refers to basically to somebody who is spent a significant period of time in one or more cultures other than his or her own culture, and they integrate the cultures with their birth culture or their home culture into a third culture. So they have more in common with each other than with kids from their passport home country, and also less in common than the kids from the host country. So they have more in common with each other. Who are they? They're all these different types of people, basically, in terms of military kids and also missionary kids, business and government kids. Here at Saudi Aramco, the average longevity for an employee is more than 10 years. So they tend to stay here longer. Missionary kids also are like that, like myself, who grew up in India. But military and government kids tend to move every 3 or 4 years, and that's part of the whole idea with military and with the government, so that they don't get too attached to the father employees, or the employees don't get attached to any one country too much. Businesses can vary. They don't purposely move people every 3 or 4 years, so sometimes they can look like Aramco kid, which is a business obviously, or a company, and a missionary kid who tends to be in one country only. Oops, let me go back again. So basically you can see here, just read this. This is just one student from quite some time ago. Of course, the definition of home kind of changes sometimes. Global nomad is slightly different in the definition, but not that different from third culture kid. This is just one student's viewpoint. So it is interesting when most of these students go back to their passport country, their home country, let's say the U.S., just for the most examples, but it could be Canada or any other country for that matter. They're either going back usually for university or in some cases boarding schools. And like I said, they've only experienced that home country as vacation spot basically up to that point. How does it happen? Basically, each culture is assimilated into the third culture kid's life experience, and it's a sense of belonging that forms strong relationships with others of similar experience. So there are several people, well-known people, that are third culture kids. Current President of the United States is one example, Barack Obama. He spent some of his life outside. In terms of cultural adaptation, so you have the cultural views of the parents, and of course that's on a continuum, mainstream, and then you have cultural views of the culture, the host culture, and international cultural adaptation is at the maximum in the intersection of these two cultures. So, and that's basically where you have the global nomad cultures at the intersection of the two cultures. I just wanted to go through for the next 10 slides or so some benefits and challenges of cross-cultural skills that are evident in third culture kids. And these are the students that member schools of SATB would be getting from Aramco and other places, international schools around the world. And there are some similarities with international students, but of course there are some significant differences that just need to be paid attention to when you're marketing to this particular population of kids as well, students as well as parents. So some of the benefits are they tend to be excellent observers, but they can be perceived as social chameleons. They're highly adaptable, but they are perceived as socially slow because sometimes they don't know the nonverbal behavior of their home culture because they haven't been raised there. They're flexible, but they tend to sometimes be not assertive in new situations because they are so flexible and used to just going with the flow. And they tend to be less prejudicial, which is a positive, obviously, in terms of cross-cultural skills. In terms of development, then, some of the benefits are maturity, rich data bank, strong relationship with adults, a sense of autonomy pretty early on, communication skills. Sometimes the challenges, the flip side of those things, are they're kind of out of phase with others of their same age in terms of social skills or education because they've been going to school outside of their home country. There's sometimes some latent adolescence because they've had to quote-unquote mature more quickly than others, so they tend to maybe have some latent adolescence during university years, late bloomers, so to speak. The flip side of a strong relationship with adults is rebellion, anger, termination of compliance, but that's a typical adolescent phase anyway. And they sometimes attempt to catch up with childhood experiences, so kind of regress, so to speak. In terms of worldview, there's many benefits of being a third culture kid. For example, having a more three-dimensional view knowledge, understanding, and empathy of the world. Very secure in getting from one place to another because they've traveled all their lives, and they tend to be highly motivated to get back overseas one way or another through jobs or just travel. The flip side again is pain sometimes in reality because they're quite sensitive because they've actually seen poverty and things like that. There's sometimes confusion of loyalty, whether they're loyalty to their home country or to their host country where they've grown up, and they can be perceived as less patriotic, and that happens quite often, even though they may not be because of their more open worldview. And they can be impatient with others who they see as kind of closed-minded, who have not experienced that kind of a more broad worldview. This is just another third culture's kids' views on a subject about ambivalence and some of the feelings that are go along with moving around a lot and being raised overseas. In terms of mobility, they are, again, adaptable and flexible. Confidence in change, sometimes kind of addicted to change, which sometimes is not a good thing. Sharpened perspective. They have a rich memory bank because of all their memories of moving around. Extensive relationship bank because they have relationships all over the world. And they recognize the importance of now, and of course that's a whole area of kind of counseling focus these days in terms of helping people stay in the present, being mindful and so forth. In terms of challenges, there's rootlessness because they've moved around a lot, so they haven't been able to put down tap roots anywhere, so they have more systemic, wide-ranging roots. And home is a lot of times in their mind elsewhere. Of course, home is where you hang their hat and where you're currently living, basically. But it takes a while for them to understand that, psychologically particularly. They tend to have a migratory instinct, so academically, career-wise, or family. Every couple of years they have this sense of wanting to move, or a new job, or new spouse, so that sometimes that can be damaging. And there are too many relationships, which that can be difficult also. Another perspective from a third culture kid. There's some advantages to moving because you can start over again. But of course, you don't control it as a child, so that can be difficult. In terms of relationships, third culture kids tend to enter relationships at a deeper level. They value relationships, they have a sense of realism, and they have some independence. Some of the challenges are limits of intimacy, so they go in at a deeper level, but they don't want to get too close because they have this fear of abandonment or leaving. They have some limits that they place on their vulnerability, some emotional flattening sometimes, and they can sometimes become quite insular and lonely as a result of that. In terms of leave taking, and I mentioned that before because they are experts at that, they have empathy for others and sensitivity, and sometimes they can have closure skills, but a lot of times they have what's called a quick release response, which is they kind of get in an argument before they're leaving so that it's not as painful to say goodbye, and then they get a sense of being a victim. Their parents move all the time, and they've been in 4 schools in 3 years and so forth, and some unresolved grief, anger, depression, and delayed response because they don't want to say goodbye, and so they kind of tell themselves that they'll see the person again, and then they feel bad that they didn't properly say goodbye to the person. So this is just some good advice for when people move. It's called building a raft, R-A-F-T. Reconciliation first. The first thing to do is, in terms of these stages, is reconciling with persons with whom you've had difficulty, affirming of people and places that have given you joy, farewell to those people, places, and possessions. Sometimes you leave those behind, and then thinking ahead to the place where you're moving. So reconciliation, affirmation, farewell, and then thinking ahead are the stages of building a raft to travel to the next destination. Oops. Yeah, so here's another third culture kid note. That's kind of sad. Know very well how to leave, but no knowledge of how to stay somewhere. Illegitimate. Those are just feelings that sometimes kids have. I just wanted to give some special thanks there to a former counselor who worked here for a while, and David Pollack, who's the author of several books on the topic of third culture kids. Okay, let me just talk about global nomads in terms of the Aramco example then. You have the home country, which is typically America, but can be Canada or some other country, and then the host country is Saudi Arabia, of course. And the shared experience is being an Aramco BRAT, basically, which is what they call themselves in terms of kids that have grown up here. So you can ask yourself whether you're a third culture kid. And in terms of the definition here in Saudi Aramco is historically a BRAT is someone who graduates from one of our Saudi Aramco expatriate schools. By the way, let me just describe the schools while I'm here and thinking about it. We have 6 schools that are spread across the eastern province of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have the two largest schools are here in Dhahran, where I'm sitting, which is the world headquarters of the company. Right across the way, causeway, long bridge from Bahrain on the coast, and we have a large elementary school with more than 1,000 kids, and a largest middle school also here in Dhahran, which is about 900 kids. And then we have 2 schools in Ras Tanura, which is about 45 minutes north of here, also on the coast. There we have an elementary school of about 400 to 500 kids now, and a middle school of about 200 kids. And then we have a school 45 minutes southwest of here, inland a little bit, in Abcake. That's a 3-year-old program through grade 9. That entire school is 630 kids. And then we have a very small school about 2 hours southwest of where I'm sitting, inland towards the center of the country in Uzalia, and that's about 230 kids in 3-year-olds through grade 9. So, and we are the school basically for all dependent children, school-age dependent children of Saudi Aramco employees, expatriate employees, and Saudi Aramco is the largest oil company in the world. It's a nationalized oil company of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So right now we have 3,823 odd kids across our 6 schools. Largest we've ever been is 3,848 back in 1982. So we're about to surpass that. So we're just waiting. It'll probably happen in the next couple of weeks. The other difference is that we take kids throughout the year, always as the company hires, since we are the benefit, educational benefit for employees, and they're hired all during the year. So we're very unlike other international schools that have a certain amount of seats, and they do admissions much like your member schools do once or twice a year. So we're rolling admissions basically, and we don't have a set number of seats. We just have to take any new kids. Today, many kids who spend a number of years here can be considered Aramco brats. Kids who grow up in Aramco compounds tend to stay for longer periods, and that's unique, as I mentioned before. Other types of third culture kids tend to move every 2 to 3 years, typically. Some of the common feelings: multilingualism, shared experiences, tolerances for other cultures, never-ending feeling of homesickness for their adopted country, Saudi Arabia. And so when they go off to boarding schools, they are often homesick for, local eats and treats and places. So they really enjoy coming back. They're called returning students, and they fill up our compounds again in the summertime and sometimes at Christmas and sometimes the spring break. And you'll see them all around the compound getting together with each other. They also have a desire to remain in close contact with friends and other TCKs that they've grown up with. And sometimes even when they're young, they'll start asking questions about how they can work for the company and come back here. This situation is very different in one way than any other host country, and that is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia does not grant tourist visas. So you literally cannot come home, quote unquote, home, to visit like you could any other country that you grew up in. So you have to actually work here to be able to come back home here. So that's quite different. So kids already start thinking about that when they're quite young in upper elementary school, for the most part, about how they can come back as adults. What are some of the issues that third culture kids deal with? Reverse culture shock on their return to their, home culture, like the U.S. They have a globalized cultural view that sets them apart, and it's hard to relate to non-TCKs. Some of the issues that they may deal with: they usually grow up to be fiercely independent, culturally sensitive, broader understanding of the world through their varied experiences, and sometimes they can face an identity crisis because obviously they're not Saudi and they are American, but they can't really relate to other American kids. So sometimes that's an issue. Okay, so now we're getting to the meat of this presentation, which are my top 10 tips for marketing to third culture kids and their families. So it's a lot of families engage in what's called, the cost-benefit analysis. What do they get for their dollars that they're not paying for? The company actually pays for here. That's a benefit. For grades 9 and up. It used to be for grades 10 and up, but now it's for grades 9 and up. So they pay for basically up to a maximum, of course, based on the father's salary and so forth, any boarding school in the world, any school in the world. So being upfront in your sales pitch in terms of additional costs beyond the basic tuition would be very helpful, because basically they know what they're going to get benefit, and they just want to know. They're fully expecting to have to pay some money out of pocket, and in fact the company's benefits are structured in a way that it only pays up to 90%, because they believe philosophically that the parents should also have some responsibility for financing the boarding school placement. So just being upfront about that, so no hidden costs. If there are additional costs for horse riding lessons, piano lessons, or trips, or things like that, just be very upfront, particularly with the Aramco parents about that, because they just want to know upfront, because they'll analyze that, the different boarding schools that they're interested in having their child attend. Safety is a huge concern that parents have, and you might think that's strange because they're raising them here in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, where there are lots of problems, obviously, recently and historically. But you have to understand that these communities where these kids are raised are very much bubbles and are very safe and secure. So parents, because, of course, the child's going to be far away, but they're, in the States, there's a lot of stuff that happens not such good stuff, and in terms of personal safety. And that doesn't typically happen in the Middle East. There might be wars, violence, terrorism, etc. in the Middle East, but there's, compared to the West and the U.S. particularly, there's really not that much personal crime, robbery, etc., etc. So safety is a huge concern for parents. So if you can address that in your presentations to parents of third culture kids, that would be most helpful. That's my tip number 2. Tip number 3 is varying your marketing strategy depending on the culture of the family that you're talking to. Most cultures, other than Brits, UK, boarding school is not part of their culture, and sending the kid away when you don't have to is not part of the culture. So addressing that up front, it can be very helpful with parents, but also just taking into account, are they different religions and what your school has to offer in terms of religious practice or food choices, limitations in food, and so forth, and how values are embedded in your curriculum. We have, obviously, we have church-related schools that come and recruit, and mandatory chapel, things like that. That's not a non-starter for many of our families, even if they're Muslim. But it's just important to be clear about values that the school is based on. Humanistic values, religious values, etc. Tip number 4, which is a good tip all around anyway, regardless of who you're marketing to, is be very honest. In regards to fit, be honest with parents on the type of student profile you're looking for. Don't sugarcoat the sales pitch just to generate application numbers. Parents will catch on to that very quickly. We've had some boarding school admissions people come and recruit and say, oh yeah, go ahead and apply, and I don't know if they're just trying to make their school look more selective in terms of statistics, but yeah, a lot of those students have no chance of getting in, so really shouldn't be encouraged. So just be very honest with that. If they're a student, if it's really a reach, tell them that, and then send them to one of your colleagues' tables. Tell them to go check out another school that you might be a better match, because at the end of the day, for everybody involved, all the schools that come and recruit here, we have more than 100 reps coming, descending over here in about 2 weeks from now for our annual boarding school recruitment fair. It's not to anybody's benefit to take a kid and then have it not work out. You want to take kids that's a good match that you're going to be successful with, and that's what the family wants too. So rather than sugarcoating it, etc., try to make a match where there isn't one. Just say, maybe we're not the best school, but this school over there, you might want to check them out. I think they might be the place for you. So that's always good to be honest, of course. In terms of ethics, this is particularly true in terms of early decision. I've had parents even come to me, and they're all worried about early decision and putting a down payment down, and sometimes I think, rightly or wrongly, they get the perception that they need to apply early decision and or give the school or that their child might have a better chance of being admitted if they apply early decision and so forth, or early action. So just be very upfront with them about that, and also in terms of them getting back to you by a certain date. I mean, it's not really fair for them to, or just be clear if there is a contractual thing. If you say yes, if you apply early decision, you have to say yes or no by a certain time, and you can't change your mind. They need to understand what that contract, so to speak, of early decisions is. Because each school, it varies a little bit. And most schools have been quite understanding about that. Things change in children's lives, and sometimes they have to change their minds at the last minute. Technology, take advantage of technology, though I have to say handwritten notes go a long way. Videos of heads talking, individualized notes. The more you can do with personal touch, the better. One of the people that I've seen really succeed on that, and now works at TABS. Many of you know him, Andy Hurt, and he came several years and didn't get much action, but because of his personal kind of touch and writing personal notes to parents and students and spending time talking with them, he had a lot of people interested in his school, and now are attending that school. Alumni, of course, use any alumni in the local community. We have teachers who are Aramco BRATs, but also other employees who are BRATs, and sometimes second generation, and soon, next couple of years, probably third generation Aramcons, we call ourselves. And so use those people to market your school, even when you're not here. When you are here recruiting, have them host a social gathering in their homes to invite people and so forth to talk about it. Use social media to your benefit. On corporate machines, like the one I'm on, computers, a lot of things you cannot access, like YouTube and so forth. But on personal computers, of course, you can, and so that's a great way to reach out, particularly the student more so than the parent. Some extras just to what do you offer for foreign students or third culture kids? What do you do for short breaks? That's an important question. Like Thanksgiving, a lot of schools shut down the dorms, and that's too short of a period of time for a child to come over here. And of course, we don't get Thanksgiving off in this part of the world. So, what do you do? I know some schools are now staying open for Thanksgiving, so that's an option for foreign students and third culture kids, and they actually, have the faculty that's still around, have Thanksgiving, invite the kids over and so forth, teach them a little bit of that American tradition. How are the airport transfers done? Do you have host families that can take these kids for these shorter breaks or long weekends? Another question that a lot of the parents will have is, do you have a separate foreign student or third culture kid as a distinct orientation program before you do your regular orientation when they're coming over to begin school with you? So that's just something to think about and talk about when you're recruiting. And of course, if there's summer school, talk about that. That's a great way to get students because they go for summer, there's no commitment on either side, it's just they're checking you out and you're checking them out, and that's a good way to get students interested in your school and then applying eventually. Again, personal touch, keep in personal contact over time with the potential students, and keep true to the mission of the school rather than trying to fit your school to the student. Just keep true to the mission of the school and be honest and forthright, and you should do fine. I just want to do a little activity. Of course, it's easier to do this when you're live with the audience than doing a webinar, but I'm just going to go over some profiles that I made up, not really based on any real students. And I want you to think about whether your school would be the place for each of these three students. And then think about, as third culture kids or applicants from overseas, in this case Saudi Arabia, whether they have some kind of advantage over more local applicants from the U.S. Due to their overseas profile or not. So the first one, pretty typical, U.S. citizen, male, born and raised here. Father's a driller from Texas, 3.1 GPA, so decent but not great. A few extracurriculars, but he's fluent in Arabic, decided to take Arabic. Mostly B's, a smattering of A's, in electives mostly, and a few C's. The kid wants to go to a boarding school, but the mother is a little reticent because this is not in her culture. So would this student be a good match for you? Why or why not? What does this student bring other than, academics and so forth? What would this kind of student bring in terms of diversity to your campus? So that's profile number one. Profile number 2 is a Venezuelan citizen female. She's been here, her dad's been here, family's been here for 3 years. Slightly lower GPA, he's an ESL student. Lots of clubs and extracurriculars, quite social, soccer player, B's and C's. This one, the parents, which is unusual in this Latino community for sure, want the kid to go to boarding school, so that's just interesting. But the kid is not sure that she wants to go or is ready to go. So she's a little bit reticent about going to a boarding school. And the third profile, the last one, is an Indian national, 5 years at Saudi Aramco, AOA payroll. So this is called Arab and other Asian payroll. So their benefit is about half as much in terms of boarding school tuition as U.S. payroll. So they'll need financial aid. She has a 4.0 GPA but no extracurriculars. She's fluent in Hindi, has all A's, and the child and the parents are positive that your school is the one for their daughter. So you have the kind of American kid who's grown up here his whole life. You have a Latino girl that's been here from only 3 years, and then you have an Indian national. The girl is ESL, not such good grades, but lots of extracurriculars. The Indian national, lower payroll, lower benefit, that is. Also only been here for 5 years, has a 4.0 GPA, but has like no extracurriculars, so obviously is a studious person, but not involved in a lot of activities, which probably isn't part of our culture anyway, in terms of that being important. So those are your 3 profiles. So you can rank order them in your head to try to, figure out what they're summarized here in this slide to see if you would be interested in that kind of student or not. So again, the tips really are for Aramco. Let me go into some detail in terms of our kids and the benefits they get. As I said, U.S. employees can send their kids to boarding school for grades 9 and up. We only go through grade 9, and so it used to be grade 10 and up, but last year they changed that benefit. So it's grade 9s and up for U.S. Employees. And for all others, including Canadians, of which we have quite a few, they can go to boarding school at any time after the age of 4. Now, of course, a lot of them do not do that, but so some of them do go out after grade 7 or grade 8. We have about 250, 200 kids plus or minus in each grade level. So grade 9 we have about 200, and grade 8 we have about 200. About half of those kids go to a local high school. We have a local high school here, Daran High School. It's right around the corner. And about half or 50% of our students matriculate to that high school, either for grade 9 or grade 10. So I think more and more might be going over there for grade 9 just to start their high school career over there. Plus, it's become more selective. It's an IB school, so they know that there are more chances of getting in grade 9 than grade 10 because there are more seats available, more spots. So about half. So that means there are about 100 kids in grade 9 going out to boarding schools every year, and about 50 or so, maybe a little more, going out after grade 8 every year. So, about 150 kids going out to boarding schools, just to give you an idea. There's a boarding school 5-day a week, which is kind of in between in terms of boarding school or day school. And look, in Bahrain, it's a Department of Defense school, U.S. Department of Defense. So that's a kind of an option, a semi-local option, 5-day a week boarding. And then there's King's Academy in Jordan, which is also closer, and then we have some schools in Europe that are 1 flight away rather than 2 flights away. And then the rest of the kids go off to schools in the U.S. and Canada. So again, it's about 100 to 150 kids that go out outside of Saudi Arabia, or the local region, I should say, every year. and that's why we have 100 and some schools that come here and recruit every year. And this has been going on since the company was founded. The company is very good in terms of benefits. Basically, right now it pays up to 90% of 5 times the father's base salary. So for most employees, that's a good figure. And they have a maximum also of 49,000 US dollars a year. And again, 90% of that. Now, when you have beginning employees who've only been here a year, including teachers, by the way, that 5 times base salary only amounts to about $30,000. So in terms of financial aid, it's different than in the years past, where financial aid you probably want to give to a different payroll person. Now, teachers' children might be needing some financial aid. So anyway, so that's the benefit, and then it also includes 3 trips to the boarding school. They don't care if the kid comes here, the parents go there. 3 round-trip tickets, and then one of which is also to their father's what's called point of origin, because in the summer we have repatriation leave, so one of the trips is a higher amount for the ticket because it's to the boarding school and back, but also to the point of origin, point of record. So that's basically the benefit from Saudi Aramco's side. And again, parents are pretty much, they're used to the idea that they'll be paying some out of pocket, some money out of pocket. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. Again, if you have questions, this is my email address, nathan.taylor@aramco.com, right here. Please email me any questions you might have, and I'll be happy to get back to you with an answer. So thank you for your attention, and let me see if maybe we have a question or two that I can respond to.
Nathan, thank you so much. We do have several questions here. If you would please address, how does financial aid work with these children?
Okay, yeah, so financial aid, basically, if you're above the company maximum, if you can just give that as aid to the kids, that would be great, because again, otherwise it becomes exorbitant for parents to take $15,000 or $20,000 out of pocket. So let's say they get $30,000 from the company, 5 times the base salary, and that your school is $49,000. So if you could bring that down to just giving them some financial aid down to something like $35,000 or $40,000, then the company will pay up to 90% of that, and then it's reasonable for the parents to expect to pay, between $5,000 and $10,000 out of pocket a year. That's what I would suggest. Parents will ask. Some parents are pushy and they ask for all of it. They cover the difference if you want their son or daughter to attend your school. But it's reasonable to expect them to pay, like I said, $5,000 out of pocket per year. So that's the best thing to do. We're not in, in terms of financial aid. We don't know those details. So basically, all you have to do is ask the father for, his base salary, and they can send you a scanned copy of their pay stub or something like that. And then you can go from there. So in terms of financial aid, for the non-U.S. citizens, they tend to want to save money for college. So they're looking at, if they can get a better deal. So I know a lot of you offer aid, needs-based aid, even to foreign students, non-U.S. passport holders, but also merit scholarships. And a lot of schools will just say, look, we know what the maximum is for Aramco, we know what you're going to get, and we will just take care of the difference if we're higher than that. So the European schools have been doing that, and that's helped out quite a bit.
Terrific, thank you. Could you tell us what are the major differences between these kids and your typical applicants?
I think these kids are kind of they're almost trained to be good boarding school students. And I say that only because I've been doing this now for 10 years in this position, and met all kinds of admissions directors and heads of school even from boarding schools, independent boarding schools in America mostly. And they keep saying good kids, and I'm like, well, what do you mean by good kids? Can you help me define that? What they mean is they're kind of, because it's part of the culture here, so kids start talking about whether they're interested in going to boarding school or next door to the quote-unquote local option, high school, when they're in 4th or 5th grade. And so it's part of the culture. Parents start thinking about it even from the day they're hired here. Oh my gosh, this is going to be an option. What are we going to do? And a lot sometimes they change their mind. So I think what distinguishes them is they're really ready. Because this is kind of like, it's not boarding school, but it's kind of like America was in the 50s, as I gather from reading books, because everybody knows each other, they take care of each other, parents know each other, they go to each other's houses. So it's almost like living in a boarding school community. And so they're kind of prepared for that, whereas kids from the States are, they're used to, they're not like that. They're used to being quite independent, and so not kind of geared or trained up for boarding school. So not only psychologically are they ready, but kind of behaviorally, because of they've been raised in this kind of bubble, fishbowl over here in Saudi Arabia, which is a lot like America, like a small American community. People say it looks like suburbs of Houston, Texas, actually. That's why I think that's what distinguishes, particularly Aramco kids. Third culture kids in general, though, I think they offer diversity to receiving boarding schools that may not be seen on the outside because they're not from a different culture, skin color, etc. But they offer good diversity and economic diversity also, because obviously most of your kids, if not of all your kids from North America that you recruit, are paying out of pocket, and that's very different socioeconomic class than the parents here, who are, yes, remunerated well, but are kind of upper middle class and would never dream of boarding school, and that's not in their family history. And it's only they're able to do it because they work for this company who has this benefit. So those are just some of the things that our students bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Could you give us some hints and tips? What are the best ways to keep in touch with these families?
I think the best way probably is to email the kids and the parents, and every once in a while write a personal note if you can, snail mail, but mostly emails and social media. And also keep the parents in the loop as well. They can tell right away if it's a kind of a standard letter that they're getting from you, as opposed to a more targeted, individualized kind of follow-up that you're interested in their student. And what typically happens is these students are, they get into multiple schools, and then they're left with a good decision to make, which is sometimes difficult for them. And I think a lot of it depends. Of course, it depends on where their friends are going as well. But personal touch, as well as just keeping in touch with them. So not hounding them with numerous emails or telephone calls, but just following up in an individual way. And so sometimes you'll talk to a student initially, and they're in 7th or 8th grade. It's kind of a passing, not a formal interview. And then they check in with you again, and then they might come and visit you, your campus. So just following up with notes and indicating that you're interested in them. Being at your school would be the best way to go, I think.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email Nathan at nathan.taylor@aramco.com. I want to thank you, Nathan, for presenting today and giving our listeners such a great presentation.
Thank you.